This podcast is the result of my passion for languages and for talking to people. I have conversations with language professionals who are willing to share their experience. We focus on their work, but also on how their love for languages has shaped their personal lives. I started my career as a researcher in terminology, but I found my passion for working directly with clients when I lived in the United States and started working as a language consultant for global companies like Sony, Apple, and Google. When I came back to Europe, I was introduced to the world of LSPs, where I had multiple roles: project manager, vendor manager, and terminologist. Now that I am fully dedicated to my own projects, I provide language services in English and Portuguese, mentoring and consulting for the localization industry, and of course, I'm also a podcaster. Find out more on LinkedIn or Instagram and get in touch if you'd like to explore how I can help you with your projects. I am Rita Prazeres Gonçalves, the language worker. Hi, everybody. I am so excited today because it's been months that I had been thinking about inviting Carlos, but I thought, let me have something to show for before I tell him, because he's like a popular person in the industry. He'll be like, oh, who is this woman wanting my time? So I was like, well, now that it's established that at least people have a slight idea of what I do and what the podcast is all about. So let me invite Mr. Carlos, and it's such an amazing day for me because of that. So we were already talking for 15 minutes, and we were talking about Carlos' music career. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Let's start with the languages, because I guess the music and the languages probably coexisted in your life pretty much all the time. So let's see how that goes. But first, thank you so much, Carlos. This is super exciting to me, and I can tell that it's going to be a great ride. So thank you so much for being
my
here.
pleasure, Rita. So I'm really excited to join your podcast too. And see again, it was non-scripted, as we just
Yes.
discussed. Say, would you like me to prepare some questions? He said, no, just sit there, things roll, and that's exactly what I think that it feels most natural. And I really love this kind of conversations.
Yeah,
So
so
thank you
here
very
we
much
go.
for having me.
So as I told you, I did look at your profile because I was like, oh my God, there's so much about this man. How am I going to start? But then I was curious, what did he study? So then I started by looking at that. And you actually, I guess you are a teacher at heart, and it's part of what you do. So it totally makes sense in the end that you actually studied at university to be an English teacher, right? So that's how it all started, or
Yeah,
things started
exactly.
before?
I was one of those. I was one of those students that loved both science and letters. So I loved arts. I loved maths. I loved technology. So I was not sure. It was really painful to make a decision back in the university. What are you going to study? I mean, do I really have to choose, or better said, do I have to discard one of those things for the sake of the other? And say, okay, so what I most like at the moment, and still love, is languages. And I love working with kids. I love sharing content. I love working with people. So becoming a teacher, school teacher, made a lot of sense to me. And I actually did it briefly
Ah,
after
you
I.
did it. Ah.
Yeah, I went to. I went my first working experience besides playing as a musician to
Yes.
just to pay for my studies was working as a language teacher in Chesterfield, in Derbyshire, UK. But I was really young, and I really enjoyed the experience, and that was what really opened my mind beyond anything I knew. I come from a very small town, so people are somehow
And
closed-minded.
you come from a small town where? Because now I'm not sure if you're Spanish.
Yes, I come from this Spain, Soria. This is my home place. I come back so often that I don't even have the time to miss it.
Oh,
Because yeah, I also find both personal excuses and professional excuses to go back there.
I bet you do.
Yeah, I am really happy to go back in the last few years since I established myself as a freelancer. I go back to deliver workshops and lecturing occasionally at the university, and that's really a great chance to connect back with my university. I studied in Soria, in my hometown, which, by the way, is very close to the place where the first manuscripts in Spanish language, in the vernacular language, were found.
Wow.
So I'm
It all makes sense.
it all makes sense now. Yeah. After that, I studied in Soria. I spent some time in the UK, but I was really young and I wanted to do something else. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted, so just studying something else in my hometown, in a sense, and just could start. I could start translating, studying translation and interpreting, and doing only the upper half of the ladder. That's
Mm-hmm.
It was a crazy first year, but I studied these 2 years of translation and interpreting,
Mm.
a lot of subjects from the first 3 years. And after that, I got my degree in translation and interpreting. Studied just running around. I was not sure what to do. I loved languages. I loved technology. I loved talking, which is my favorite sport.
Yes.
And so I did a lot of experiences here and there. I did a traineeship at the
Yes, I
European.
was like, what? I was not expecting that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, why not? But I wasn't.
I
How did
well,
that
it was
happen? I mean, you applied, obviously, but how did?
rewinding. Yeah, I did first. I actually went twice. The first one was a 1 month traineeship, a summer traineeship, right after I finished my degree, and there was one else for just yeah, so decent performing students. Yeah, the performing students were allowed to
Mhm.
apply for that, and I went there with but there were not many people. There were not the rest of the stagiaires and all the freeze and the excitement about the school year traineeships that they deliver twice a year in Brussels and Luxembourg were not
Mhm.
there. After that, I came back to Spain. I didn't know what to do. So after a few months doing absolutely nothing, I decided that I had to do something with
Playing
my life.
music, I suppose.
Yeah, I played music, but not professionally, of
Right.
course. They and I went to Ireland. I went to Dublin and I
Mm.
spent a year or so in Dublin. So, I mean, I went with a couple of job interviews, but I actually I thought too high of myself. And yeah, I mean, it was after that to say, how stupid could I be? I refused two nice job offers because I thought that I
You
deserved
deserved
something
more.
more. I ended up washing dishes and playing in the street for a while. So I was buskering. Yeah, I've been a busker as well. And I had contacts at the library, which was free. So I spent a lot of time in the local library.
Mm.
After that, there was an internet point. So I could eventually look for hunt for job offers, whatever. And I saw that there was an extended traineeship at the European Commission
Ah.
offered, but I was really so discouraged. I was really down at the moment, and the only reason why I applied for that is because I already had all the paperwork done from the previous time.
Right.
So I didn't have to feel I'm not particularly fond of paperwork. So and I did it, I sent it, and I was accepted. And that was a turning point in my life, my career. Um, that was completely turning from one of the most frustrating periods of my life to one of the brightest periods of my life. I learned how the profession of translator in Luxembourg within the European Commission. I learned
Mhm.
what it is like to be a full-time translator. I learned proper translation tools. That was my first contact with CAT tools, computer-aided
Right.
translation tools. I developed a taste for technology, for search engines, for translation technology, so on. And after that, I went back to Spain. I traveled to different countries as well, and then I ended up in a call center for Nokia. That was technical call center.
Was this in Spain?
That was in Spain. That was in
Mm.
Madrid.
Mm.
That was in Madrid, and when I did that, I after a couple of years working there, I was a training specialist. I started picking up calls,
Mhm.
right? So probably this grumpy old women just complaining about their phones not working.
Because Nokia was pretty big some years ago, right? As far as phones go.
Yeah, I eventually joined the technical team, so it was just the level 2 support that was
Mhm.
more interesting, of course. And after that, I happened to be particularly efficient at solving cases, so I was promoted to technical trainer.
That sounds good.
Yeah,
As a
that sounded
job.
much better. So, but I mean, my stomach aches just ended up. I didn't have
I believe you.
any stomach
I
aches
believe you.
ever since. But I ended up just being in touch with some of the Finnish trainers from Nokia. Say,
Mhm.
and I was already noticing. I was in charge of delivering the prototypes. Okay, so I brought my prototypes from the mastermind sessions in Copenhagen and in Finland, Turku, and I brought my prototypes, which I had to deliver training for
All
different call
right.
centers, repair centers, and so on.
So you were
And
an expert on that terminology, right?
yes, that's so I wanted to. I noticed that there were errors in the interface and in the phone interface. And say, just for example, we don't use that word. We don't say that in Spanish. Say, and I started asking my boss. Say, okay, I noticed there are several errors here. Is there any way we can report this information so that they can improve what they
Like
translate?
bugs.
Yeah, there were actually bugs. The process was really complex. Nokia was top of the game back in the
Yeah,
day, and
yeah,
so there
for
was
sure.
the chain, the
To get there.
was really steep to
Yeah,
climb.
I believe you.
But because of those comments, because of those suggestions I made, eventually a translation team from a company called Trados, this ended up, they were in touch with Nokia, Finland. They were
Mhm.
translation providers for them and say, okay, we have an internal team translating the interfaces and the user assistance, the user guides for Nokia, and we would like to have someone to coordinate. It was a really small team. There's three people translating everything.
Mhm.
Okay. Do you happen to know someone who, language wise, who understand translation, how
Wow.
translation works, and say, well,
Oh my God, that's
I just
amazing.
might. I just might. So that was my first contact with localization. I didn't
Right?
even know that was a thing
Mhm.
by then. So that's, yeah, I started reviewing the process, localization, and just making consistency between
Mhm.
what was on the screen and the user guides and everything. And yeah, I spent a couple of years
Wow,
there.
that is really cool.
I was still working as a project as a trainer, as a
Mhm.
product trainer, but that was my side job within the company. That was really cool. After that, I moved to Italy and I landed in a localization company just because of that.
Your background, of course.
I had an interview. I was in Bologna, so I had
Mhm.
an interview at Ferrari.
Mm. Oh.
Right? You don't want to you don't want to hear what they were willing to pay for spending just about 11 to 12 hours there, just working with all the C-suite,
Mhm.
uh, just taking care of all the phone related issues.
Mhm.
Yeah, spoiler, they were just paying peanuts. Yeah, so I refused it. Yeah,
I know sometimes the name of the company sounds very good, but
yeah,
then
yeah.
I know what you mean. I totally know what you mean.
In case there are any Ferrari executives listening to us, just please treat your workers
We
right
hope you have
and pay them
changed your
according
approach.
and pay them in line with your earnings. Anyway, I joined the localization company because of that nice mix between languages and technology of my
Mhm.
previous experience at
Of course.
Nokia, and then I became a project manager at Nokia. This was CrossGap. It was a it was working together with, well, then eventually it was merged with different companies, the market trend.
Yes, of
Right now
course.
there are very few big players and
Mhm.
plenty of smaller LSPs. Back in the day, CrossGuard was a local company. They were doing really well, particularly in translating software applications from some of the top players.
Mhm.
Up to date, I am still not sure if I am under an NDA to disclose the clients, but they were one of the biggest software developers and
Mhm.
operating system developers. Okay,
Yeah.
we were in charge of doing that.
I guess when we talk about the big players, they're like an abstract entity because I can say I worked for this one or that one because it's like, what does that mean really, right? That means that this was the end client, but what was the chain to get there, right? So I guess that's why it's an abstract concept.
That's when you need to edit the podcast audio and add some beeps in the meantime.
No
I go,
editing here. You already know the drill.
So yeah, that's
So
where
what was that experience of working as a project manager? I mean, of course, you had experience from somehow managing people, somehow training people. So you brought all of it, plus your language knowledge and your specific knowledge of localization. So when you got to be a project manager, you weren't just some project manager who had no idea, because like a lot of people start on the job in the industry for that particular position, which I believe it's like the pivotal job that you can have in the industry, right? You're the 180 360 person who needs to know everything about everybody, right?
yes, actually, and but I was surprised the day that I was supposed to, I mean, the company, there were about 40 people. There were engineers, there were some project managers, there were internal linguists as well. But I was surprised that I was only one of the two translators in the staff.
Nobody, the other people didn't have language
This is
background or
that
translation
localization. I
background.
mean, we're translating software, okay, but we are translating at the end of the day. So I was assuming that there be going to be plenty of translators. There were only two people. There's another.
That is interesting.
Yeah, there was
Unusual.
a colleague, another woman, a Greek friend who had more or less a very similar path, a very similar career steps, including staying in Luxembourg for a traineeship and working at Nokia.
Wow, that is insane.
In Italy. Yeah, I think that the headquarters were in, well, they were in Rome, but they had a call center in Florence, not far from Florence. But there were bit of everything. There were people with very, very different backgrounds, obviously with a taste for technology and software and arranging information neatly. But I spent 6 years there, and it was really, really I was in contact, and I was surrounded by really, really good professionals, some of which I still look up to as one of the best professionals in localization, even if they are not as talkative or as visible as me or some of other colleagues. But they have taught me everything that I now talk about in terms of its translation, machine translation, technology, CAD tools, QA tools, productivity, PC hacks, whatever.
Yeah, I know when you're lucky enough to have, a group of people or people like that in your life, and then you just don't forget where it came from, right? I totally agree. So I have a couple of people like that too.
I was new in the company, and particularly during the first couple of years. So I mean, there was really, really good atmosphere.
But did you do language work, or were you just in the?
I was arranging projects. I mean, as a project manager, I was in charge of just making sure that everybody did their thing. Is
the full-blown project management.
Manager just taking care of hiring the freelancers to do the job, making sure that the internal language leads did the instructions and followed up all the queries, the engineers, because there were some complex pieces of localization. Some of them were purely software, some of them were multimedia. So there are several different people, internal and external talent involved. But we were given time to do research on tools. And that was one of the things I'm really, really happy about. That happens, and I know that's not what usually happens in many companies, particularly those not bite-sized companies, but still not really sizable. There were not corporations, but we were given time, a few hours, I don't know, just 4 hours a week. Myself and another guy that's called Matteo Rozzarin, which is one of the colleagues I really look up to. We're given time to do some research on just playing around with translation memories, with automating processes. That's what really raised my curiosity to unprecedented levels. Okay, there's plenty of things that you can do with these tools that I was never even aware of. So I started just playing around. I had already been playing. I'm your IT friend that when your computer breaks, I was that kind of guy. It's okay. Let's call Carlos and bring him a couple of beers, some snacks, and he will fix your computer.
Wow, that sounds like a plan. If you want to come over.
I was easy easy to satisfy.
And then you were
And
there for 6 years. And this was how long ago that you left this particular very nice company?
2014. I spent there from
Mm-hmm.
2008 until 2014. The
Mm-hmm.
company was merged, the headquarters in Italy. The company, the Italy office became smaller, and the structure was really thinner. And I decided it was time to move. Also wanted to do something else. By the time some of the projects I had been involved with had worn off, I mean, there was the life cycle of those projects was over. I was not particularly excited with what I was doing at the moment. I decided to take some time off, right? Because I was with my kid at the time. I had a 2-year-old kid.
Ah.
Yeah. With my wife, she had not had her maternity leave, and so I could take some paternity leave in
Mm-hmm.
back in the day. So I spent a few months to say, okay, let's do it now. It's now or never. So we packed our things. We put everything we had in a box. We were in a rented flat. Okay, so that was not a big deal. And we went to Central America
Oh,
with the children. Yeah.
okay.
And we went to Central America, and we spent volunteering. There's a network of volunteering where you can land the most unusual and unexpected jobs to the thing. I also love working with my hands and with crafts and everything, and I never had the chance to do it properly. So
Right.
I spent some time in a farm in the tropical rainforest, just working, just polishing wood and working with feeding the pigs and working with a machete to.
So you can just be left anywhere and you will be able to survive basically with those skills, even without saying a word.
Yeah. And yeah, we went repairing appliances, repairing electric appliances in a godforsaken place in Panama, working at a surf camping in Nicaragua for rich Norwegian customers. And yeah, really, really diverse stuff. No, definitely not what I used to do in Europe. After that, I was also helping some of the people. There were a lot of volunteering going on. In some of these places, things that the managers, the people in charge of those structures, really knew how to do things. Sometimes I could spot a few things just being, I mean, not chaotic, but that could be improved.
Yeah.
Right.
So you were aware of the process, how it could be improved in terms of process.
Obviously, I was wise enough and humble enough not to say anybody, okay, I know that you've been running this for 10 years, but here I come after my second week. I'm going to tell you how to do things.
Right.
But I took some mental notes about it. I tried to improve a few processes about the most mundane things, about as in collecting garbage to preparing the menus to whatever, and just trying to assist international customers in different ways, with supplying sort of a multilingual policies to in a hostel, for example, where the owners did not speak a word of English, but had plenty of, particularly from Canada and States,
right, makes sense.
So basically monolingual customers. Yes. And yeah, when I go back to Europe,
you had just practiced all sorts of skills during this time, right?
I mean, my
more
mind
intellectual, more manual, anything.
My mind was bursting with new ideas about what to do. I got back to my office because I had this maternity leave. But after a couple of, not even a couple of weeks, some days, I looked myself in the mirror and say, okay, what are you doing here, Carlos? I think it's time to do things differently. So we left in nice terms. I really loved what I did the day, but it was time to move on. Yeah, I started to build something for myself. So I went freelancing and I started to freelance, and it took me some time to put the pieces together. I started writing a blog on, I was not sure. I wanted to help people, but I still don't know what was the scope and the focus of my potential business.
Right.
A good friend of mine, I was trying to write a blog on, I don't know, helping people, just trying to devise a process and follow steps towards, I don't know, making a self-made entrepreneurs, whatever. But that did not work. I mean, something did not really hit the proper keys. And a good friend of mine, he works in an entirely different industry. He told me, okay, you're trying to help people, and that's nice. You're trying to make yourself useful, but you're trying to tell people who have been working in different industries on how to do things. Why don't you focus on the thing you do best? What do you best? Okay, I'm good. I think I'm good with technology and languages. So
right. So you went back to your original
that's your
thought.
niche. That's your niche. So and on top of that, since I also love teaching, I never stopped being a teacher lately for grown-ups, but I try to put that into a single pot. And so I have different hats, and when I try to explain to my mom what I do for a living, it's complicated, mom.
Because you're a true language worker, right? So you do language work, even if you don't do linguistic work per se, because you haven't done that now in the last 10 years or so, right? So it hasn't been your focus to do language work, but you do more of a training, technology training, presentations. So was it from the moment that you created this, I guess you created a company or a service, or what did you create it around?
It's just my war name. Yes, Inside Lock Language Services. This is my VAT. I'm registered, but my VAT registered name is Inside Lock Language Services. And that's something that, I also spent some time.
So your brand, let's call it your brand. Just
that's my brand. Yeah.
Okay, your brand, Carlo's brand.
But I still do translate.
You do.
Actually, yes. 10 minutes before I joined. Yeah, I joined you. I was delivering, just doing the final review before delivering a job. So I don't want to lose contact with that, and it still takes me about nearly 40% to my time, something like that.
So in that case, what is a typical day of Carlos, in the life of Carlos? So in this case, there is language work and there's all sorts of other things, right? So what is the other things that are harder to explain?
Yeah, well, I think this music is an important side of me. That's my other big passion, and I've also been fond of music. That's probably music is to be blamed for my love for languages as well.
Yes, I understand that fully. Yeah,
I remember myself just being a kid, 9 years old, 10-year-old kid, just with an industry with a notebook. I was with my Walkman, and I was already listening to rock and early metal music and trying to understand the lyrics. I loved the music, but I was trying to understand the lyrics. Back in the day, we did not, of course, that's a boomer anecdote. I did not have any access to the lyrics or even to the original printed lyrics of some of the albums. And so, back in the day, even many of the albums didn't come with any lyrics at all. So I was trying to figure out how to write what I was listening to, and eventually somebody would bring the actual lyrics, and I compared and saying, okay, so this is what this guy is singing, and this is how it should be written properly.
Right.
And that really helped me dig down and create a method to understand. And I was an active part in my language learning, music.
I am exactly everybody. Well, I always talk about my start. The beginning of everything for me was because I'm a huge, full blown, diehard Madonna fan.
Okay.
So I call her my English teacher, and I just saw her a couple of weeks ago, and
that's it. I was able to ask because she's on tour now.
yeah. So it was amazing as always, but I guess it was even more amazing. But I call her my English teacher because that's really how everything started for me, how I started focusing. And I did it just like you. I created my method, I involved my little brother, and everything worked out. And we've never stopped ever since, so I do understand fully when the inspiration comes from something as emotional as our connection to music, even if I'm not a musician myself. So it doesn't even compare to your connection to music, but I do have a connection to this whole Madonna universe. And that really has fed a lot of my interest in languages. That's for sure. Obviously, I cannot deny that ever. So I'm with you.
Definitely. I mean, even as a teacher and as a language user, actually, I sometimes there are many people is coming to me and saying, "Okay, do you have any tips on that? I want uh, to start learning any language, say German, English,
Yeah.
French, whatever." Say, "Okay, you need to make a connection with that language, with that culture." That's the very first place. I have never ever met up to date. I have never met a proficient user of any language which has learned that language only because it's going to come up useful in the future for business purposes. Obviously, I mean, you can get by. Obviously, you can reach a decent level, obviously, but not proficiency. And obviously, you will never enjoy
Yeah.
speaking, interacting with.
It's the pleasure that
Only
comes
to
from it.
imagination. Okay, so we start talking about Madonna. We could spend hours talking about Madonna.
Of course.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because there's something inside you that just something clicks every time you touch one of those that topic. When I
Yeah.
started with music, my very shabby German. I know I cannot say that I properly speak German, but one of the very few times that's probably the language I had studied most. Right? I studied 3-4 times in different stages of my life, but I never managed to start actually speaking it. The only time that when I realized that I could actually have a conversation was when I was in a metal festival. It was lost. There was no coverage. I was waiting for my friends, and there were just, I mean, not nowhere. The campsite was huge, about 60,000 people, and I had to wait for a few hours. Okay, for I managed to guess where to plant my tent. So, and there were a couple of Austrian guys there, and they did not speak a word of any language other than German.
So you had to do your best.
We started. I mean, they just put the music. They told me to grab a beer. We started talking, and the more went, okay, beer probably helped. And I found myself having a full-blown, just 60-minute conversation in German, which was something I was not aware I was capable of until 60 minutes before.
Yeah, because the environment and the subjects.
I found a connection.
Yeah.
And fresh beer.
No, I totally get it. Especially, well, I mean, you probably have a connection with Germany with music in that context because they're pretty strong in the metal department, right? I mean, of course, I know that I listen to these people who are metal, I guess, for the masses because I listen to Rammstein. Just last night, I was listening to it. But I guess they can be considered metal. But I know that we have a pretty famous metal band. They don't even sing in Portuguese. They only sing in English. And their biggest market is actually Germany. They're called Moonspell. So, yeah, they're pretty well known.
Fernando Ribeiro.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So that's him. Of course you know him, right? You know these people. So they're pretty big there, bigger than in Portugal. That's what's funny. So they have a bigger market there. So I understand that when we have that, then a lot of things can happen, right? Because of this emotional connection. And I totally get it. I'm one of those people. I don't deny it. That's where it comes from. It all started there and it ends there every single day because that's what I do. I go back to it every single day, many, many times. And that's what love is. So then how did you become this very famous person who shows up at every single event that I hear about in the language industry? Was it in 2014 when you came back and you started doing things on your own? Was this before that you were already doing things? Is this more recent? What's the story with that?
Yeah, that's pretty recent. I mean, I always loved just talking is my favorite. I'm your average chatterbox, so I just needed to to monetize that to just to convey that into a message. Okay, so I just like most people, I have very disparate interests, but I needed to focus on a few things. It was that was the hardest part. And say, okay, I need to discard a few things and focus on something that even that I can be really useful. So I started doing what my friend told me to do. Just focus on what you know, what you do best. And another piece of advice that I really held onto was given by my mentor, which is one of the persons that I most admire in the whole world, is Josep Bonet, Pep Bonet from the he's been working in the European Commission at PAO, and he retired last year, but I went to Brussels as an excuse to meet him actually, and I really really love him and look up to him. And when he knew that I was going freelancing, he told me, "Okay, make yourself visible in social media." And okay, saying I know nothing about social media besides just sharing nonsense and jokes on Facebook. I know nothing, but I just started working on it and posting things. I decided that I was going to talk about business on Twitter and LinkedIn. Okay, there are many people talking about every possible topic on social media, and it's really easy to distract. Since I am I have plenty of interest. It's really easy for me to get distracted. So I willingly wanted to focus on a very specific aspects of language and technology. That was for me, and that's Twitter and LinkedIn for me. Obviously, all those language industry, technology related to language, technology, so on. And I started doing it. And I took advantage of one of the opportunities that, well, I studied in Soria, as told you, and during our Christmas gatherings. So for the holidays, we had dinner, all the students, all with my former with my former people at the university. And every time one of my friends that works at the university, now she told me, okay, now you've been working in localization for several years, and that's something that not many people are familiar with. I think it would be interesting if you came to the university and gave a quick workshop, an introduction, presentation, whatever. I never had the time at the beginning of the school year because I was busy with my work and back from my summer holidays, so that was not possible. But the year that I quit working in the company, say, okay, this time, why not? Okay, just prepare something. And I did it was something like a 90-minute workshop on localization. It was very naive in the day, if I look at the presentation and everything, even the layout and whatever. But I mean, it was received. It was received very well, and they wanted more. Saying, okay,
of
we're really
course.
happy with it. Why don't you reshape this and turn it into a full 1 day or 2 day workshop?
No.
We can work on that, and we can invite you to the university, and of course we will pay for it. And say, hey, that sounds good. And so here's another chance to get back to my hometown and meet people, meet my professors at the university. So that sounded really good, and it was really well accepted, and it was really welcomed. That gave me the boost I needed to start developing more content, and I really like talking people and since I am also a musician, I love being on stage.
Of course.
Deny it. So I really love enjoying just playing with language and playing around with doing some playing theater and just dramatic pauses and breaks, whatever. All the dramatic resources you might have.
So now every time you see an event, you're like, oh, I'm going to send in an abstract and I'm going to make a presentation here. Is that how do you choose?
Yeah, I did that.
So easy because there's lots of things to go to at the moment, right?
Yes, exactly. Well, right now I'm in a really happy place right now. And sometimes I submit my call for papers and submit proposals. Well, sometimes I'm invited to join it, and I'm really really honored to have, because when I quit my day job, I wrote a list of the 20 things I wanted to do before I die.
Okay.
Life goals. Call them life goals. One of them, on top of them, was just trying to find out a work that allows me to be happy and make the people I work with happy and fulfilled. I need to be fulfilled, so that's one of my things. And the second one is find a job that allows me to travel and meet new people and places.
Yeah.
So I found myself the perfect excuse to travel.
Yes.
Yeah, and that really made a difference. Just attending on the following year, I attended ELIA together for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and that was also a game changer to me.
Because you're now a very relevant member of the association, right? I was going to get there in a minute, but let's go there now.
Yeah, well, actually, I joined. Well, I started attending the ELIA Together events, which is a yearly event that takes place around late February, and puts together language service providers and freelancers. And there's only a two-day event with plenty of presentations. This is the Together Fair, which is a gathering place for where LSPs and freelancers can meet and talk to each other face to face. And you can meet people who are relevant, people who want to improve the status within the industry and want to improve their professional practice and move forward with their career, as opposed to people who don't join associations, who stay at home and never attend any events, never take any CPD courses, and keep complaining about how poorly they are performing and how bad the industry conditions are nowadays, saying, okay, there's a different side to it. And joining an association and attending events is the best, most efficient way to do that. So when I first attended ELIA together, I was amazed at the atmosphere and the kind of topics. I was just a bit to myself. I was a bit reluctant to admit, okay, you're going to a work event. I say that sounds boring to me. I don't know. That's not something like a metal festival or to me, something like that. So I'm going to spend money to attend a work event as to do what exactly? Because remember, I was beginning my freelancing career, doing my first steps as a freelancer. So say, okay, let's do it. In the worst case scenario, it's just gonna be a few $100 and I will never do it again.
Right.
It went great. It went so great that I met a lot of people. Some people I knew. I made a lot of contacts. And while I was looking at people presenting, there were some great presenters that, oh, I'd love to be there on stage. And I applied for it.
Guitar or not, right?
That's it. I submitted a proposal for ELIA 2017 in Berlin, and I was accepted. That was really exciting. And I started presenting for just international audiences. So I grew used to it, and I really love doing it. I think that I improved my style and the type of content that I deliver. I found what people were looking for, and it's one of the most important things, because it's not that I want to talk about me, and say, okay, that's
today only. That we're only talking about you.
Today only. Here are all the very extremely interesting things I do. People, they need to bring something home, right, and to the office. So I also learned what they want to pick from industry events. So when they want to pick from technology, what I had to offer and how to put them in contact. So above all things, I might consider myself as an expert in language technology or whatever, but I consider myself a bridge. Yes, I try to put people in contact, create networks between people in different sides of the industry. Because one of the main problems that many people still have nowadays is a lack of understanding of the pressures and the needs of each side. So freelancers complain about the rates, complain about the working conditions, complain about the intrusions on work by non-professional translators, and they put the blame on LSPs. But LSPs are very different. They span from
yes, I know. Being a vendor
operations.
manager for 8 years, I was in the middle of all that. So for many years, and it's really a subject that interests me a lot. Maybe I should be a bit more public about it, but I definitely I do have a very specific opinion, and I think it's, I mean, fundamented by a lot of experience because I was there, right? And I've been in the industry for a long time, and I'm definitely with you that there's needs to be a lot more knowledge and understanding from each other's perspectives.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. So I guess it's very valuable work. So, but then after the first experience and the first presentation and all that, so now you're in a completely different position because you're now in the, is it called a maybe not management, but is it like you have a
No,
specific
no. I
function?
actually, I'm sort of. ELIA is made of companies. It's an association targeting language industry companies.
Mhm.
Okay, it's not open to freelancers, although they also act as the meeting point for freelancers and LSPs. So my job there is I'm volunteering at the committee. I've been volunteering and helping with different committees over the last 4 or 5 years now. And yeah, I try to provide the freelancers' perspective when
Right.
they try to organize an event or something to arrange the program for the LIA together. So I provide a perspective from my side of the game, which is usually really helpful because well, this is like in any association, but I really find myself very comfortable working with people, and I cannot praise enough the work that people at LIA do to put together all the pieces of the puzzle, and just to help to promote mutual understanding within the industry. I'm really happy to have been working with Diego Cresceri. He's he has been working as a project manager, as a program operations manager in translation and localization companies. He
So
has
he's
now,
the owner of Creative Words, right?
yes, he's the owner of Creative Words and has a lot of different initiatives. He's also very social guy. We're pretty like-minded in on so many different aspects, and we have found a really good balance between his way of understanding the industry from his current perspective and my way of understanding things. Obviously, we talk a lot with different people. We have Margarida this year at the committee is really helping us a lot. She's a vendor manager at an LSP, so she provides also a different perspective to things, and I think that's the essence of what we do. And then in any association, just bring in different points, because the risk of just joining an association and start discussing on painful topics is that if everybody's on the same side and everybody has the same views on it, and you create committees that fully agree on everything, you're not going to make yourself as useful towards your user base, to your member base, as you would if different perspectives were provided.
That's true, for sure. I hear you. So as you can tell, my image is gone for some reason, which is the first time that it happens ever since I started recording the podcast. But I
It's
don't
a
want
good
to.
picture, anyway.
Yes, it is me. It's another microphone, but it's still my microphone. So, but I don't want to go away before we talk about, because of your social butterfly nature, of course. I know you're also involved with Lock Lunch, and I've had other people here at the podcast, like Gabriella in Algeria, and all of those people who are actually Lock Lunch ambassadors. And this is your case too, right?
Yes. Actually, it was Diego Cresceri. We were talking about him a few minutes ago. And another friend from Italy is Roberta Tavolacci, who's the ambassador. Is a long-standing friend from whom I met at ELIA together in my. And they said, okay, this Lock Lunch thing, you would love to become an ambassador. I mean, it's no big deal. You just arrange these social events and make sure that you spread the word, and it's just a celebration of translation in the language industry. I happen to organize several events and dinners and drinks in Bologna, which has been my hometown for 16 years, and now in Pisa. Okay, yeah, that's a really good initiative that started Jan Hinrich from Beluga Translations. Started, and it really grew exponentially. Yes, so they probably have dozens and dozens of ambassadors in different cities all over the world.
Yeah, true.
Continents, and I'm really happy to join that. It's more complicated to arrange these events on peak season, right? but but it's really rewarding to meet, because on one side you get to meet some of your fellow translators who you've already met in different translation events or in other occasions. Sometimes there's always some new people coming, people who are shy, perhaps they're freelancers, but I'm not so sure what's in it for them. I mean, it's this a business? Is this a business lunch? No, not at all. It's a completely casual lunch, and we, of course, we may discuss business related stuff, but you actually talk about everything, including the music or personal interests or whatever.
Yeah, of
Obviously,
course.
eventually the conversation will drive towards some translation related matters, but
Of course.
it's
That
just
has
like,
to be the case. It's normal because that's what we
uh,
talk about all the time, right?
that's it. It's between, yeah, no, you have the right arena to discuss, I don't know, terminology without being kicked out of the pub, right, by your friends.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, totally. But it's inevitable that we talk about the stuff that we love the most because all of us, I think this is what we have in common, and it's what
It just comes
brings
natural.
us together, of course. So, Carlos, it's been amazing. I am very unhappy that my image is now gone because, I mean, what can I do? But I don't know, probably the connection problem. But it was amazing to talk to you. And I was expecting a lot of fun, but it went even further than my expectations, which is why I don't script the podcast because
It's
then
all
if
about the buskering thing.
no, because that's the way it is, right? If we go into a very specific route, then I myself can predict, then I cannot predict things that are amazing that, just come to you as you're speaking, and then it's not as interesting, I think. So that's one of the reasons why it's definitely unscripted. So thank you so much, Carlos. It was great meeting you. And now I guess you have inspired me and other people to just go out there and attend events. I used to attend a lot of events when I was a researcher in terminology. There you go. But to be honest, in the translation industry, which I have been in for ages and ages, I haven't been as present at events. So it's probably a good moment to get started. So thank you so much, Carlos. It was amazing. I cannot wait to see what you're going to do next. You're always on stage. Now I understand, sometimes with the guitar, sometimes without the guitar.
Yes.
But as long as you have a voice and the guitar is your other voice, so I guess you're always happy. It makes me very happy to feel that you're so happy because it's just
I love what we
a
do.
boost of energy for anyone who can,
I mean, in the
come
end
in
of the
contact with
day,
you.
yeah, I always say that in the end of the day, what I do, I completely forgot the last time that I woke up and looked myself in the mirror and say, "Oh, come on, I need to work again." Say, I love what I do. I really cannot wait. I mean, I'm not a workaholic at all because I really love my spare time and doing things that have nothing to do with my job, but enjoy what I do. And that's one of the most important things you need to ask yourself when you look in the mirror, as after you just washed your face in the morning. You say, okay, are you up for an exciting day? So if you don't, I don't want this to sound really a happy coach thing, but really, if you enjoy what you do, it's easy to show enthusiasm and to perform better and to do things better and to try to improve on a daily basis. So we're on that path.
Yeah. So this is also the purpose of the podcast, is to make me happy. Or else, why else would I do it? So I do understand what you mean. And thank you so much for this. It was great. And I'm sure that we'll meet one of these days. Who knows, in Italy, or maybe you'll come to Lisbon for an event. Who knows?
There are different events going on basically here. So I hope to see you and the audience in one of these events. Yes, stop and say hi. Okay.
Yep. Okie dokie. Thank you so much. And we'll see you around. Thank you, Carlos.
Thanks.